Awesome. I think we're good to go. All righty. Well, welcome everyone to a new episode of Sports Harder. My name is Maddie Lukewarm Ice. I am your host, as always, for this new episode. And we have a special birthday guest with Colt. Happy birthday, my man. Did you want to introduce yourself again to everybody? Oh, I don't have any audio for you on Zoom here.
Are you not hear me? Are you hearing me
now?
now?
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So it's Colt Schroeder. Pretty much you can find me Colt_Schroeder. On pretty much every platform, aka the Buffalo Nerd. I host the Buffalo Nerd Sports Podcast, weekly show, or you can just head over to buffalonerd.com. I do a little bit of writing and stuff now, covering football, mostly the Buffalo Bills, little fantasy, and I bring on people each week that kind of delve in, fantasy, draft, whatever it may be, and we chat Bills, and we also like to highlight a charity every week. It's kind of a cool thing that we do over there. We're up to over 30 charities so far this year that we've been able to highlight. So just kind of cool thing we do.
Man, that's awesome. Well, what's the birthday candles? How many are we putting on it for you today?
Yeah, we reached 39 today, and I officially declared that this will be where I'm going to stop doing birthdays. Is at 39. I'm not going any further from this point on. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Officially stopped birthday, not getting any older any longer.
Yep, that's it. I'm calling it quits right here.
The fountain of youth will always consume you from now on.
That's right. I like it.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on, taking the time, especially with it being your birthday, to do a quick podcast with me. My normal host, Chris, has been busy. He went on vacation to Orlando. He went to Universal, and then he went to Cabo for a little bit as well. And Cabo was paid by his wife's work, so it was all free. It was all paid, and so he got some needed vacation. He'll be back next time on the next podcast, because the next podcast will be us doing our fantasy football draft. So we're excited about that. So talking fantasy football, is there any sleeper picks that you would take this year in your fantasy football draft if you were drafting?
Yeah, for me, this is a good question, because I'm getting ready to I've got a couple guys that I've been like really narrowing down this is the first year I've ever kind of put together like rankings for myself and kind of just really written down where I believe people may actually finish. In fantasy, I've never really attempted to do that before, but I think it's important to move forward. So I've got three guys that I'm getting ready to actually write an article about, and one of them is Marvin Jones. I do believe that the ball's going to be thrown a lot down there in Jacksonville. I think that's just the way the system's going to be played. Sharka is, to me, the guy that's on the odd man out there, and Marvin Jones is just such a veteran player that when the rookie's scrambling and he needs help, I think he's going to look to the Marvin Jones, because he doesn't really have a tight end that's like a real playmaker there. They got a Shaughnessy who's whatever, he's been there, and they just dumped Tebow because he couldn't block. Whatever. But to me, I like Marvin Jones a lot. I actually also am like Tyler Boyd. To me, when Joe Burrow was like real healthy at the beginning of last season, he was playing well. Tyler Boyd was killing it. And Tyler Boyd, to me, again, is going to be in a supreme situation. I understand they brought in the rookie and, Jamar Chase, who's a phenomenal talent as well. But I believe in connections, and I think that Joe Burrow knows that he's got a guy in Tyler Boyd that will be there for him. So I would say him and another old veteran guy, Terrell Williams. Detroit's got to have somebody catch a football occasionally. Jared Goff is not the greatest. You have experience with that, but he can complete passes, and somebody's got to catch the ball. And I like Williams. I think he's a good player. It's similar to what I just mentioned. He's a veteran. I think Goff will understand that the veteran will be one of his best places to go. He's got veterans. He's got Perryman on the other side, who I'm intrigued with, but the injury concerns turn me away from that side and make me go to Williams, who I've seen have success as a third wide receiver. And now he's going to probably be the one, minimum two, I would say.
Oh, nice. I like it. Well, I like when you mentioned Jacksonville. Everyone's hyping up all the rookie quarterbacks around the league, and especially with the preseason games going on, they were really focusing on like how well the rookie quarterbacks have been doing in preseason. And I always think it's hilarious how much they try to hype up rookie quarterbacks in preseason because they're not going against number one defenses at all. Don't get me wrong, you still have to make the throws, obviously. Like you gotta be able to make those throws, but a little bit easier in those situations than in regular season, I would like to think. And Trevor Lawrence had that firsthand experience because his first snap as a Jacksonville Jaguar was a sack. So I as soon as he got sacked, I said, well, get used to that, kid. Like it's going to be happening a lot where you're at right now. So like you said, he's got that security blanket that he's going to have to dump the ball definitely a lot in with those pass rushers coming at him. So I definitely understand that for sure.
Yeah. I mentioned Joe Burrow over there, and if you went and watched the beginning of Joe Burrow's season last year, I mean, Heisman Trophy winner coming in for the first 8 weeks of the season before he got injured or whatever it was, he looked like he was going to die. The offensive line could not protect him. He was getting hit all of the time. And I think we'll see a little bit similar to that. And it's going to be interesting because I do think that Jacksonville might be in a little better place than what Cincinnati was. They do have three good wide receivers. Now they've got, Travis in the backfield or wide receiver, whatever they're going to call him. And James Robinson had a nice season last year. So I think he's set up a little bit better. But absolutely, there's part of me that the NFL is always going to be like, welcome to the NFL, rookie. And every guy in the defensive line wants to say that to you after they've just planted you on the ground.
Yep, that's like what they look forward to the most. Like every game, no matter what position. Like as long as you're on defense and someone on the other side is a rookie, or you're just looking to like get them on their butt and be like, hey, well, you're in the big leagues now. So
I mean, granted, I've never done that, but that's just how I'd imagine it is, right? And if you watch Hard Knocks and you watch some of these things, that's just the vibe that you get. I don't know.
Yeah, that's very true. I wouldn't doubt that in the least. So well, that's good. I guess another fancy question that we can go over is like, number one picks. Everyone always, harps on who you taking number one if you have the number one overall pick. So who are you giving advice to that has the number one pick out there on their fantasy teams?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it feels weird because you typically, when a guy gets injured, you don't immediately make him the number one pick again the following year. But CMC is just such a stud that it feels foolish to walk away from him at 1-1. Obviously this depends on your format, what you're doing, and if it's two QB, like all that kind of stuff, right? But
Yeah.
overall, best player on the board for me is CMC. If you didn't want to go that route because you are that person that's like, hey, he was injured, I'd rather just not follow that route this season, which is understandable. I would say Cook would be your hard shot right after that.
Wow.
I like Dalvin
Okay.
Cook. I think he's going to get the work again. I think the offense is similar to what you saw last year. I'm anticipating a little bit of an uptick in the defense, which should be helpful for them. But yeah, he's proven to be a stud too. And you've got Zeke. I think he's a great running back. Barkley, I can't condone injury after injury, right? I have a hard time with that. Kamara, until I know who the quarterback is, which I think I know who it's going to be, and that means boxes will be stacked a little bit differently against him. So yeah, that's where I'm kind of at.
Man, and the person I was looking for that never came out of your mouth, Derrick Henry. Like you're gonna pass up on Derrick Henry, who just basically monster trucks over everyone that he comes up against. Like, I think he had a 99 overall stiff arm on Madden this year.
Yeah,
Like,
now to be fair, in one draft at 1-6, I did take Derrick Henry as my running back, and I do believe that Derrick Henry is a great running back. But it all depends on format as well. I do a lot of PPR stuff, so yes, he doesn't score as well as some of the other guys can score in that department. Even though I would still say he's surefire.
awesome. Yeah. I've already done one fantasy draft so far in a random league, and I had the second pick, and the first person took Derrick Henry, and so I took Christian McCaffrey, like you were saying. So even though he's coming off an injury, I still think he's one of the top dual threats of like catching the ball and running the ball. So you're getting points for both things, because he can score in the end zone either way. They line him up to throw the ball to him to score, or if he runs it in. So yeah, you can't pass up a dual threat. That's why I think Kamara is always a good one too, because he seems like another dual threat type of person. But like you said, I guess it depends on who the quarterback's going to be. You say you kind of know who you lean towards in with the Saints as their quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's Taysom Hill. I know that's anti what a lot of people want to believe, but I've so you said you've done a draft, right? I'm 25 best ball drafts in so far. I think I'm like 6 or 7 regular redrafts, a few dynasty drafts already, so I've been doing a lot of grinding already on this stuff, but yeah, I mean, I think it's Taysom Hill. I think he fits the system better from what they like to try to do. I'm not sure if you're familiar with who Derek Brown is of Fade the Noise Network, but he's a big Saints guy, and he told me early on in the season that he showed me some numbers. He's got an article out that's out there floating around that really shows that Taysom Hill fits the intermediate and short passing routes better. His passing percentage is way higher than Jameis in those situations. And we have to remember that last season he could have put Jameis in as the quarterback and he went with Taysom Hill, right? And then you've got videos this year already of like Jameis getting sacked by the truck machine and like things like that, and so they're all NFL guys, right? So it's not fair to really make fun of them because they're way cooler and have done way more than I have or will, in the NFL. But yeah, for me, I that's where I feel like Taysom will be the guy, especially because he can run a little more and give them that aspect as well. But the Michael Thomas thing obviously changes everything. That's why Kamara to me takes a little bit of a hit because he is going to see a lot of stacked boxes, even though I know he's very good. But with Thomas out, and then you're possibly going to have Taysom Hill in there, who I think can give you that run element. I don't see that many defenses are going to give them tons of room, right? But that also means that if he gets by 2 guys, he might have 40 yards in front of him and nobody else.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's interesting just because, when I think of Jameis or ever even hear his name, I just think pick machine. Like he just knows how to throw the ball to the other team. But I don't know how much that was, where he was playing, but then Tom Brady goes in there and, wins the Super Bowl. So, and he had most of the same wide receivers and players he was playing with as Jameis did, so but if I had to go with Jameis or Hill, I would definitely pick Hill for sure if I was the coach. And especially with the quarterback read, because then the defense doesn't know if Hill's going to run it or if Kamara is going to run it. I don't think Jameis is known for doing that as well anymore, or I think Hill's at least a little bit better at running with the ball than he is. So.
Well, and oddly enough, because there's so much uncertainty with them, is that you can get Hill like super late, right? So you could potentially be getting a guy like way late. Like in one draft I did, I think I just got him in like the 16th or 17th round. I took him, not as my planned starter necessarily by any means. I think I subscribe to the fantasy footballers. They actually have Taysom Hill as a top 3 tier quarterback. Because of what he can present in the fantasy space, right? If he is provided the opportunity. So I mean, it's all about fantasy for me. Is all about what you see and what you want to see and what you want to watch, right? Because I mean, do you want to watch Derrick Henry score touchdowns every week? Yeah, then pick Derrick Henry. Right? If that's how you feel about it, right? Don't just go out there and be like, well, I should take CMC. Well, if you don't like CMC because you just are like, I don't really want to watch Carolina, or I don't really want to subscribe to what Sam Darnold as my quarterback, I'd rather go with Ryan Tannehill. So I've seen kill it the past 2 years with Derrick Henry behind him. And now they've got AJ Brown and they've got Julio Jones. So yeah, I mean, subscribe to what you want to subscribe to, because you're the one that has to ride with them all year.
Yeah, that's very true. I think people always criticized me in the past for fantasy football because I hated Tom Brady so much, and they would always be like, "Why don't you draft Tom Brady in your fantasy? He's so good." And I was like, "Because I hate him so much. I don't want to watch him play." So, like you said, if it's someone you're not really interested in watching, then it kind of takes the fun out of it.
Now on the flip side of that, if you're doing this for real, and you are actually putting your hard-earned money out there that's good amounts and you want to make money, then don't just pick the guys you want to watch. Actually do some research and figure out because think about each year when you do pick those guys that you want to watch, and then Tom Brady goes out and he throws 48 touchdowns, and you're like, shit, my quarterback only threw 32 touchdowns, and I probably would have won my league if I had Tom Brady, right? So
Yeah.
if you like money and you like winning, then maybe you got to go outside what you really like watching.
That's true, depending how much hard-earned money you're putting into it.
Right.
That can definitely change your mind about a lot of things for fantasy. um awesome. Well, let's go to your Buffalo Bills and talk about them a little bit. Of course, I'm sure you've already talked about it, but we haven't been able to bring it up on the podcast yet. But the Bills signing Josh Allen to a 6-year extension worth 258 million. So he's your guy. And are there any concerns? I mean, sometimes when these quarterbacks get these big deals, things kind of start falling apart after that. Any concerns in the future with him, or are you happy that they got it locked in and done? And what's the feelings there?
Yes, I actually recorded the day after this was done, not planned. It just so happened that day, and I was gonna record the day of, and I moved it to the day after because I really wanted to sit and think about it for a second because I knew it was coming, right? And it felt right and it felt good, and we haven't had it in so long. But then the other part of me is like, we got to actually step back and look at it from, is this the best move, right? Like, is this really what you want? And I think it's out there somewhere. It's obviously on my show that I'm pretty sure I refound faith in Jesus and everything else when we signed Josh Allen because now, yes, it's huge money, 150 million guaranteed, so that money's gone already, right? It's whatever. The other 100 whatever million sitting there is movable. And Josh Allen to me is he came out and said it afterward. He's hungry, he's humble, he's ready to win championships. He's like, this isn't about what we've done, this is about what we need to do. And so I really appreciate that. I do believe that he hasn't reached the top of where he can be yet. I think there might be some growing pains with it still yet. I'm not sure that we'll see continued constant success like we have this season. I have no reason to believe he's going to dip. Everybody's still there. Manuel Sanders, John Brown, swap out, whatever. But yeah, to me, he pretty much was like, it's the right move because he fits the situation. He's the big arm. He's humble. And realistically, that deal after 2 years is reworkable. So to me, he's going to be that guy that, you might see his number move around in the future the way that Brady did it for years. As much as I dislike Brady as a Bills fan, now that he's with Tampa and he's hilarious outside of, if you follow him on social media now, Tom Brady's freaking one of the funniest dudes ever, which pains me to really say that. But I just feel like he was always one of the best at getting good players in his building because he was willing to take pay cuts because he was able to make money outside of football. And I think Josh Allen will be that same type of player. And I think you need that as an organization to be successful long term. So yeah, even if Josh Allen never gets anything better than what he did last year or regresses, will I take that for the next 7 years? Yes.
Awesome. Well, I sent you another link real quick because it looked like it deleted our audio or stopped our audio recording. So I'm going to try to see if we can get that going again real quick. I don't know why it kind of stopped in the middle of it, but sometimes it does that. But luckily we still have everything recording on here for everyone to be able to watch on YouTube. While you're clicking on that link again, yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay, awesome. I think I agree. Like, he was my dark horse for MVP last year. Like, I at the beginning of the season, I kind of said, like, watch out. I think he might sneak in there. And he almost did if Aaron Rodgers didn't do all the stuff that he did and blew up everything. But I think MVP is kind of, it's one of those titles or I guess awards that you get where I feel like if you're not on the team, then your team wouldn't be able to do as well. And the Bills have kind of always been missing that, upper tier quarterback. And when they finally went out and got him, everyone was skeptical because of, what college he was coming out of and different things like that. And he ended up proving everyone wrong. And I think it's a good move that the Bills locked him in and made him their guy. He's the face. He's the future of the franchise. And I think, winning now for the Bills is kind of should be their mantra and should be what they want to do, because like you said, I think he's kind of peaking right now, and he's doing everything right. And he kind of reminds me of an Aaron Rodgers in a sense. He's kind of like a gunslinger. He can move around if he needs to create opportunities to get the ball down the field without getting a sack taken, but he doesn't, have to scramble. I know his rookie year, he scrambled a lot, and he was always famous for that hurdle that he did over that one defender. But I think he kind of realized, I need to cut down on that a little bit and, focus more on trying to get the ball down the field and protect his body and, different things like that. So I think he's going to have another breakout year this year, to be honest. Like I said, I still kind of consider him maybe a very likely MVP candidate. It's, almost every year it's a different MVP. It's not very often that you get a repeat of MVPs anymore nowadays, at least. So I think it could easily, switch over to him. And yeah, I think he's got it. He's got it all right now, and I'm kind of glad that they did that. So, let's see. I don't think there was any other news coming out of that area other than I know some people have been watching the NFL Top 100. There's been some Bills players making the Top 100 for you guys, and I think that kind of happens when you get to the AFC Championship. So I mean, any team usually, if you get that far, a lot of your players are going to make the top 100 because they obviously are good enough, their team, to be able to make it there. So what do you think of some of the rankings for some of your players so far in the top 100?
Yeah, I mean, I don't subscribe to the top 100 too much because they say it's player done, right, which is interesting, but it's cool and all, but I find some of it hard to really chew on and be like, yeah, really, is that it? Okay, but okay. But I agree with you 100% that you do tend to see that when teams are winning, the NFL tends to prime those teams, right? I mean, you see it in how they get primetime games and all those types of things, right? It doesn't magically just the schedule just happens to work out all of a sudden that when your team starts winning, you get Monday nighters and Sunday nighters, right? So I mean, it's one of those things, but seeing some of the guys up there is nice. I mean, Tre'Davious White, I see him as one of the top 5 cornerbacks in the league. So if you're going to put together a top 100 list, I would absolutely expect him to be on the list. Where you want to put him in the grand scheme of everything, because to me, if you're going to put anybody on there, it's according to importance, right? And the quarterback has been proven to be the most important position that there is in the NFL. So anybody that wants to say the quarterback's to the top, then we should just list all the quarterbacks in the top because they're the most important piece to the puzzle, but yeah, I mean, it's fun to see. I do like that it always stirs up a ruckus amongst everybody. Like, are you kidding me? And it's like, but when you really think about it and you boil it down, 100 players on 32 different teams, you can't get many people onto that list all the time. Right. So yeah. It is cool when your guys do actually make it.
Yeah, it's kind of like when everyone gets in such an uproar when the Madden ratings come out, like the players and analysts and all of that are just like, oh, what do you mean he's rated this? Or what do you mean he's rated that? And they get so upset about it. And it's just like, well, it's a video game. So, I mean, you shouldn't take it that personally. If you should take it more personally if you play a game and then the reporters are like, oh yeah, like you played terrible or you played awful or you need to play better, then you can take it a little bit more personally. But yeah, I always think it's funny how much of a ruckus it makes when that happens.
Well, and because realistically, for most people that play Madden, the difference between like the guys that are in like the low 90s to like the 80s category doesn't feel like very much in the game, right? Anyways, so it's like whatever. But sure, the guys being that high up at 99, they get the pump all the time, right? So you can get them juiced up a lot quicker. But yeah, I mean, it's not the NFL. I mean, it's fun and it's fun to chat about during the downtime of the season when there's nothing really going on. But when you really look at it and you're thinking about the NFL and you're watching it, the only things that should really matter is when you say Aaron Donald, I think most people would say he's the best defensive tackle in the league, right? And that's not a big issue, right? So we should just talk about it that way.
Yeah, I always enjoy watching Hard Knocks. And watching it this year, obviously the Rams had a practice joint practice, there we go, with the Cowboys, and with the Cowboys being on Hard Knocks. And sure enough, they were showing Aaron Donald a lot, obviously, and he got in a fight with one of the Dallas Cowboys offensive linemen. And it was CD Lamb. Like they put the camera on him, and he basically said 99 is a monster. And so like he even like acknowledged like that dude's like a freak. And I don't know why you would ever want to pick a fight with him is is beyond me, whether you're an offensive lineman or not. Like just I would never want to pick a fight with that mahusive of a man.
Yeah, I mean, I just watched that last night, a matter of fact, and it wasn't just one guy that like dragged him down the ground. He was like getting ready to fight with two guys, I think was actually what was taking place in that pile.
Yeah, and as soon as and the funny part is, I was watching it with my wife, and she was like, "Is that Sean McVay running in there?" And I was just like, "Yeah, he's still too young to realize he shouldn't be running into a pile of like fighting players." So
Yeah, you see McCarthy just blowing his whistle from the distance, like, "Hey, knock that off."
yeah.
Have you? Let me ask you this real quick, since you've been watching it. Are you a little surprised about how like much Mike McCarthy's like swearing and things like that? I almost feel like it's like played out because he doesn't feel like that type of personality to me when you watch him on the sidelines and you just hear about him.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, sometimes it feels like it's a little put on when he does his like pump up speeches or whatever you want to call it, to get them ready before they play the game. Yeah, it feels a little put on. I think sometimes they're like, oh, it's HBO, so we got to have it edgy. So you can be able to do that. And my wife, again, when we were watching it, she was like, did he really have to say like the F word like right after the F word? Like he said it like literally in between a word, like. And I was like, yeah, like, I think that's just part of it, with it being on HBO and having that expectations. So
Yeah, I agree, because I was thinking of almost that same thing where it was like he said the F bomb like at least four times inside of like a 6-word sentence or something like that.
yep,
It was
yep.
like I'm like, this can't be how he talks. Like I can't buy this. Like I think Aaron Rodgers would have like actually liked him if that's how he really was. I don't that's why I don't actually buy that that's how he was, but whatever.
That's true. And another thing that's surprised me so far, with Hard Knocks, at least, I mean, that's only 2 episodes in, but Amari Cooper has been like nowhere to be seen. Like they don't video him, they haven't interviewed him, like nothing. Obviously, they always do the stars. They're going to do the quarterback. They're going to do Zeke because he's always wants the camera on him. CD Lamb has been really big this year. I mean, they did a whole segment about him and showing why am I blanking on his name for some odd reason now? The NFL Network analyst, the former Cowboy wide receiver, the
Michael Irvin, yeah, the
yeah,
88.
Michael Irvin. Thank you. I don't know why I was blanking on his name, but they showed Michael Irvin talking to Jerry Jones about it and saying like, "Oh yeah, CD Lamb is like amazing. He's gonna break out this year. Like he's gonna do so well and blah blah blah." And it feels so 110% biased that Michael Irvin is just like trying to blow up CD Lamb and make him be this big thing. I don't think I've ever seen Michael Irvin like really criticize the Cowboys ever, or like, really count them out of a game. Like he's just one of those NFL analysts that I feel like he's just all about his team. He's very biased about the Cowboys. I know some analysts are like that, former players, but I feel like he kind of really pours it on sometimes. I mean, are you believing the hype as much as he is about CD Lamb, or?
I actually am pretty high on CD. I think he's gonna have a nice season this year. He was a good wide receiver coming out as it was, and I think he'll develop. It is all gonna hinge on Dak. I mean, that's if he doesn't have Dak out there, that's gonna change the perception of everything and how he'll be covered and everything like that as well. So, but I do think that he's gonna be pumped up. this season, and he's built for it. And the other piece of it that's could have success. We'll see about Cooper because it's a good point you brought up that he hasn't been around very much. But when you have Cooper and you have Gallup and you have Zeke, if you have Dak back there, it becomes hard pressed to cover them, right? I mean, I do think that they can be one of the best offenses in the league, and he's going to get love with that. And if it's jump balls, he's very good at jump balls. And I think if he gets one-on-one scenarios where he's going to be able to jump against a guy and win, we're going to see him win. He's got that ability. Michael Irvin talent yet? Yeah, we'll see. But I agree. That's how the Cowboys always are, though. Do we expect anything less from the Cowboys than trying to hype up how awesome they are? It's like every year it's the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl, second week of preseason. It's like, well, one of their studs is hurt. So now it becomes murky. But this team does have a ton of offensive weapons now that they don't get as murky when they lose a guy like a Zeke or whatever, things like that. But Dak, if he's back and healthy, I think that CD you'll see is going to be probably one of the top wide receivers in the league, even though I still probably lean towards Cooper, even though he hasn't been playing that much yet.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and one of the things that I thought was interesting is, a part of the hype up and the talk up was, him basically the coach saying, we're here to win a Super Bowl. Like, doesn't matter if we make the playoffs, that's not good enough. It doesn't matter if we have a winning record, that's not good enough. When does it get to a point where you kind of realize what you have? Like, I know you need to motivate your players, but I don't think anyone thinks the Cowboys are a Super Bowl winning team. Especially trying to rebuild that defense. That was the worst defense they've ever had in the history of the Cowboys franchise. Like, they have these offensive weapons, but you can't make up for it if, you're in a really bad defense, and they are trying to rebuild that, and people coming off of injury and stuff like that. And it helps that they're in, one of the weakest divisions in the NFL. But I mean, do you really think that coaches should be more realistic, or, that was kind of what he's supposed to do, is be like, hey, we're trying to win a Super Bowl?
Well, I mean, realistically, that's what they're always doing, right? I think the coaches are always hyping it, but the Cowboys are in I think, a position, because you mentioned the division being a little softer, where I actually think Washington has a good chance to take that division again this year, period, just because of what they're building. But the Cowboys always are potentially going to be in a position to win a Super Bowl because they are in that division right now. And I would say that they probably are the best team, especially if everybody's healthy, minus their defense is their hiccup. Speaking of the other people always mentioned, Parsons is on Hard Knocks like nonstop. They're falling around, which he's flying around the ball. He wants to be on the field all the time. He could be that big playmaker that they need. They drafted Diggs last year, who had a good rookie season at the cornerback. So they've got some good pieces, but yeah, I think every team goes into it like that. Even like the lowly teams like the Jets and stuff like that are probably still saying those things, even though they don't believe it. I mean, you still put that hype up around the building because this is the NFL. Yeah, I mean, and you never know. You can have all three quarterbacks in the AFC East get hurt this season, and then somehow the Jets are the best team, right? Like, you never know, right? And Rex Ryan took Mark Sanchez to the playoffs for 2 seasons in a row and 2 AFC championships in a row. So the NFL can be a finicky place, but Dallas does have weapons on offense that teams should be concerned about playing them. But defensively, it always feels like you can keep up with them. So until they do that, I think they're not truly a Super Bowl contender yet.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. They still have some time and need some time to, get those pieces together and to, get things built up. I just think it would be more beneficial to kind of, I guess, hype up the not hype up, but I guess let the team know, like, hey, obviously we're trying to build something into a Super Bowl winning team. Let's, continue doing it by taking the steps needed. I mean, I just think it's odd to, look around and know what you have and then be like, oh yeah, we're gonna go and win the Super Bowl. Like, well, let's look at all these other teams ahead of you first. So, but yeah, I mean, when it comes to Super Bowl or bust, I guess quick question for you for the Bills, is that basically where they're at right now, Super Bowl or bust? I know the Rams are kind of in that same category with getting Stafford in the offseason. So are the Bills in that same category to try to win now while they have the young talent that they have around?
Yeah, I mean, I think you would, if you ask most people, that would be the philosophy that you would say is where they're at right now. I see it a little bit differently, but I wouldn't trend away from that, that's where we truly are right now, because you do have some veteran pieces in there, the Cole Beasley, some of those guys that they're not going to get many more opportunities at this. So that should kind of feel like a Super Bowl or bust. But for me, like you mentioned just a moment ago, when he does the speech, like this isn't about the playoffs, this is about the Super Bowl. I trend the other way. If the Bills were to make the playoffs every year for the next 20 years, would I be happy? Yeah. I mean, do they never win a Super Bowl in that time? Yeah, I mean that would suck, but at least every year you get a chance, right?
Yeah.
You don't get that chance if you're not in the playoffs. So for me, it's every year. It's I want to be the AFC East champs because then you get a shot to be the king, even if you're not the best. I mean, look at what the Buccaneers did last year. They were not that good. Week 13, they were 8-5. They
Yeah.
went on and won the Super Bowl, right? So it's you get in and you get a chance because then it truly is just a tournament where it's you get a weekend to try to beat somebody and you may, right? So like to me, yes, you should always feel like when you've got supreme talent that you should be really chasing that Super Bowl, and the Bills should feel that way at this time. They were just in the AFC Championship. They brought back 19 out of 22 players from that team. You should have that feeling that yes, you're there and you're a contender. And I do believe that the Super Bowl is where we want to end. Do I feel that way for me? No. I mean, if we made it back to another AFC championship, didn't win, or made it to a Super Bowl and didn't win, would I be a little bummed that we didn't make it all the way? Yes, but it's still a lot more fun to be there than not at all.
Yeah, true. It gives more incentive to root, when your team is actually in it. It makes it more fun to watch, more exciting, obviously. So to hear from a different perspective on the Rams, how do you feel about the Rams this season, especially with the division that they're in? Do you feel that we can win the division still, or is it going to be one of the other top contenders, especially with, the 49ers really hyping up their rookie quarterback right now?
Yeah, for me, and I've been saying even the Cam Akers thing took me back a little bit on where I was trending, but I did say the Rams were going to be the division winner from the get-go. Real early in the offseason, I was thinking that they were after they made the trade for Stafford. If you want to talk about mortgaging your franchise for a Super Bowl, I believe that's what Sean McVay did in what he's trying to do right now. Maybe not necessarily this year, but this year or next year, I feel like he's pretty much saying like we have to win a Super Bowl. And I think with what he did, his job probably is going to also say that he better win a Super Bowl or at least be back in the playoffs the next 2 years after everything he's mortgaging. But I love Robert Woods. Ever since he was a Bill, I wish he never would have left. But talent wise, yes, with Stafford, with the wide receivers, the defense, I do believe they are the best. And I think that San Francisco, we're going to see Jimmy G. And I think it's probably the best move is that we should see Jimmy G. Yeah, you can see that one great pass, but he also took 4 sacks. He did a lot of other things that aren't that good. And it wasn't against number one guys either. So for me, it's the Rams to win. I actually think that I've been saying all offseason, it gets a lot of negative press from everybody I tell it to really is that I think every coach in the NFC West is in the hot seat this season, realistically, because they are talented football teams. They got a lot of pieces, a lot of weapons, and they're not winning. And I get that the division's tough, but even if you lost everybody in your division, that's only going to cost you three wins every 3 losses every season, 4 max. If you lose both games to them, you could be at 4 losses. I mean, I feel like or be 6 losses, excuse me, 6 losses. You'd be at 6 losses, you're still a playoff team. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, even if you lost 2 other games throughout the rest of the season. So I think that they're just Klingsberg to me, he's not winning. He wasn't winning in college. I haven't bought him since he started. I think that up there, Mr. Carroll in Seattle's, he's had his opportunities and it's getting close. He's in his 70s now, right? I mean, at some point you have to consider transitioning, especially when Russell Wilson is kind of asking to leave every offseason until you protect him, right? So San Fran getting their defensive back and getting healthy players back, they are probably the number 2 team in that division and would
Oh,
give
wow.
you guys probably the biggest threat. I think San Fran is.
Okay, fair enough. Um, Yeah, to be honest, I was kind of more concerned about the Cardinals just because of some of the people they got in the offseason. They got JJ, to bolster their defense. They picked up AJ Green as another wide receiver. I feel like AJ Green is kind of a dark horse to go back to what we were talking about with fantasy. I feel like he's going to be rejuvenated and he's going to be like, hey, I got this young gunslinger quarterback. I'm going to take advantage of it, and he's going to, and people are going to be covering, Hopkins. So he's going to get more opportunities if Hopkins is getting, double covered or whatever it may be. So I really feel like AJ Green is going to be a blowout player this year for fantasy and for the Cardinals. But yeah, I agree. I think we mortgaged our opportunity to be able to be, in a Super Bowl or at least in the playoffs. A lot of people thought, we did well in the playoffs, even against Green Bay, if we would have, had a couple more better plays by, the quarterback. So I think this is Sean McVay's. A lot of people are saying he's not on the hot seat just because he's so young, but I feel like he is, though, because he's in LA now, which is a city that demands winning. They're used to it. He's got the quarterback of his choosing now because he didn't pick Jared Goff. So it's kind of just like, okay, either you can make the scheme work and you can put up the high numbers on offense that you did when we went to the Super Bowl, or it's not going to work. And then you're to blame because you got the quarterback that you wanted. So I feel like McVay is kind of on a little bit of a hot seat, whether some Rams fans or other people don't think so because he's young and he did go to a Super Bowl, but I still feel like LA is very demanding, and it's going to be a lot more pressure now that they're not in St. Louis. So
See Josh McDaniels when he left the Patriots after winning multiple Super Bowls with the Patriots, he went to Denver. He was quickly fired, right? Like, so
yeah.
it just because you're young and you're the bright mind and you've been winning, it doesn't always guarantee that you are going to be keeping your job for very long in the NFL. And circling back on AJ, I do really like AJ. I would say with AJ though that you need to understand what you're going to get with AJ, because his breakout to me is probably like 600 and some yards or something like that, because there's going to be so many mouths to feed in this offense, right? The more high powered offenses have more mouths to feed. Between having Hopkins over there, you still have Fitzgerald, you're going to have Chase Edmonds, you're going to have James Conner. That's not even talking about a potential tight end eating some targets too. So he's going to have good weeks for you. I definitely pick and choose where you want to use him. But for a guy that you can get again, like Sanders or somebody super late in a draft, yeah, there's nothing wrong with a veteran, man. They know how to win in the NFL. They know how to make it happen. He was a Pro Bowl wide receiver for like 12 seasons in a row or whatever it was with Andy Dalton at quarterback. Well, he was the only good wide receiver on the team. So, yeah, I mean, he could be one of those guys that could be the guy that wins you a game, say week 13, week 12, when you need it, when everybody's hurt. And because he hasn't got so much action, he's still playing.
Yeah, that's true for sure. Um, well, to kind of wrap things up a little bit here recently, Deshaun Watson's court case, well, not court case, but his investigation of all the sexual misconduct has now been upgraded to the FBI, and the FBI is now investigating this. And, I was talking to my co-host Chris about it, and I was just like, man, this is getting intense if the FBI is taking it over. Like you're not playing any more games. This isn't like local police. Like the FBI is now investigating and looking into this. And I know reports had come out that a couple of the women were offended by NFL investigators because the NFL investigators asked what they were wearing when the incidents happened, trying to blame them and shame them. I'll get your opinion first and then I'll say mine. But, Deshaun Watson's future, is he even going to play this year? I mean, it's all the way up to the FBI.
Yeah, this is bad. It's ugly. It's gross. It's bad that it's even getting this much pub still in my eye. The fact that they let him come out on the field during training camp is a little disrespectful to like every female in the world, essentially to me. I get he's got a job and he would lose money if he didn't show up to that. And if they're going to allow him to show up, then whatever, go get your money because you're going to need it. But yeah, to me, this is people that put him in rankings, people that put him in as their top quarterbacks in the NFL and all that kind of crap. No way. Until I see something that says that he didn't do any of these things or that he's actually playing in a game, he's obsolete to me in the NFL at this point, and he should never be allowed to play again if it's true, right? If it's not true, then fine, he will get his justice in the way that every player does, and he's still on an NFL team, and he still is talented enough to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. With the way that things are right now, he didn't deserve to be in the NFL the way that it is. And but every list when I get ready to do a draft, I do just cross him out. He's not part of anything that I'm looking to do.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. I feel the same way in the sense that, like, he shouldn't be playing until things get resolved. You know, I don't understand the process of investigation, how long it should take and whatnot, but I feel like it's taken a long time, and it's still been taking a long time. And I don't know if that's because he's an NFL star or not, or what it may be, and why it took this long to get it to the FBI. If the FBI needed to look at it, then it should have been from the very beginning. But the NFL, I feel like, if they care anything for anything of PR, like, they will not let him play. Like, Goodell will step in and be like, no, you are suspended or whatever until they figure out the investigation. And like you said, I feel like if it's not true, if he didn't do those things, good that the truth comes out. It sucks that his name has kind of been dragged in the mud because of it. But if it is true, then he needs to, have the full justice of the law put on him, and whatever sentence or whatever, punishment comes down on him is going to be rightly deserved if it's true, because that's a lot of women that have come out and said something. I know some of them have kind of taken it back and said, no, they're not going to go through with it, but there are still some that have done that. But the NFL investigators, anyone with common sense, I would think, would be smart enough to not to ask the women what they were wearing when it happened. Like, I don't know why they thought that was a good idea at any point in time when they were doing their own investigation. But I guess Roger Goodell doesn't know how to do any investigation, right? Because I feel like when any domestic violence or anything like that ever comes up in the NFL, Roger Goodell seems to kind of not handle it the right way at all. But of course, then they try to PR move it, and they do, like, all the commercials and all the, like, stuff of like, hey, we're not for it, we're definitely against it, and all that stuff. And then as soon as it dies down, you don't see that stuff as much anymore. Just like, the national anthem and all the stuff with the the African American players, that kind of stuff has died down, and so you don't really see that as much anymore. The players aren't demanding to still do stuff before the national anthem like they were before. So I feel like sometimes this stuff kind of just moves on its own. It kind of just dies down because the NFL is so popular. So
it's just a huge machine. It's hard to not. They can easily put something else up there. I mean, all the PR stuff I was looking at, I think it was yesterday, was they were just highlighting how we've had the first African-American president of a team now. We've had our first female, openly gay female is now, works for the 49ers. We've got an openly gay player in the league. The first all black officiating staff that ever happened. The first female that got to officiate a Super Bowl. I mean, the first female to play in a Division I school and score points. I mean, yeah, that's where their PR is, right? But like on top of that, I mean, for Deshaun I hope none of this is true, and I hope it is all just slander, right? Because it's terrible to have people out there like that. But you see this, there's 32 other NFL quarterbacks. You don't see any of this stuff from all of them, right? So it's to me, it's like there should maybe be some truth to this, and we see some of these things do eventually have truth to them. Aaron Hernandez, Michael Vick, Ray Rice. I mean, you take these things back, and eventually there's truth to some of these, and this one's got a lot of stuff sticking to it. So it's very difficult, and it's a bad situation. And I get them not wanting to stand up and this is all they want to talk about all the time, right? Because it's not that great. But you do own the biggest cog in the world that always produces money no matter what. So even if this was all you're talking about, everybody would still be listening, especially when week one came around. So you own it, put out there what you believe in, and follow through with it. And when he gets to walk into camp for the first day like nothing's taking place, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So it'll be interesting to see what the NFL does and what the Texans do. I think with or without him, the Texans kind of have one of the worst teams this year, at least on paper, so far. So I think, their plan is to not have so good of a season and then go and get a number one quarterback in the draft, this upcoming draft. So I think that's their ideal situation.
Yeah, and even if Deshaun does come back and all this is wiped clean, right? He's probably not going to be a big fan of the Houston Texans anymore because he's not going to be happy with the way they handled the situation. Which can you blame him? No, but can you blame them? No, right? So yeah, I agree. And then they can probably just trade him away for a couple more first round picks, and they're in a completely different situation with a brand new head coach. And I agree, they're one of the teams that it's hard to find a way for them to be successful, even if Deshaun is playing on that team.
Yeah, yeah, they just don't have very much around him to be able to help out, and the defense is the same way. And it seems like everyone was wanting out. I mean, when JJ wants to leave, that's saying something, because I mean, he seems like one of the nicest, best players. It seems like he would want to end his career there because he got drafted there. He seems like one of those type of players, but even he wanted out. So I mean, that says a lot when a caliber player like himself on and off the field wants out. So I think what happens off the field is just as important as what happens on the field. So well, I don't want to take up any more of your time, especially with it being your birthday, but I appreciate you coming on and spending this hour with me to be able to talk about all the fantasy football stuff, because that's the buzz. And football is around the corner. I think everyone's getting hyped for that. We're gonna have, like I said, we're gonna have ours for the podcast next week. So we're gonna try to do it as a podcast episode. So as we're drafting live, we're gonna have YouTube up, and we're gonna have the audio on, and we're gonna talk about like, oh, should I draft this one or this one? And we'll go back and forth. We'll critique other people in our league with their picks and get to criticize what they do. Last year we had someone who took a kicker like in the second round, so we were we had some fun with pointing that out, and picking on them. We called him the kicker picker. So not a very common occurrence in fantasy football, if anybody knows fantasy football. So
not unless they lost the year before and that's like their punishment or something, that they have to do it, like you have to take a kicker in the second round or something.
But as always, I appreciate you, Colt. Everyone can watch this episode on YouTube, as always, on listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the major podcast areas. We always like sharing your podcast stuff on our Facebook page. So we'll keep doing that. We love spreading the love for your podcast. I'll let you do your shout outs with all your normal stuff so everyone can, go check it out.
Yeah, man, I'm appreciate you guys doing that. I love coming on and hanging out with you. It's been just you both times I think I've come on, because I'm the fill-in. I'm the fill-in guy, I guess. It's okay to be second string. I'm okay with it. I like it. But yeah, I mean, so pretty much everything I'm doing, the easiest way to find me is if you just go to the buffalonerd.com. That kind of link you out to everything else that I'm up to. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be doing some more writing this season. Just connected with Bet Us. They're going to be sponsoring the show for the upcoming season too. So if you guys are into betting and that kind of stuff, I'm going to be doing a little extra show this season where I'm going to be highlighting some of that stuff. You can hit up Buffalo Nerd as a promo code when you go and sign up, get yourself a little bonus. Besides that, I'm going to be hanging out with Play Action. I always forget the name of it and I say it wrong. It's an office pool program that we're going to be putting out. So I'm going to be doing an office pool with the Buffalo Nerd this season where you guys can come in. There's going to be prizes and all that kind of stuff, and go up against me throughout the year, picking games and stuff like that. So we'll be doing a little bit of that. Got some real big guests coming up that fingers are seriously crossed, because if I get a guy coming up in a couple weeks, it's going to be a thrill and an honor to have him on. So I encourage you guys to check it out. And also we're just highlighting cool charities every week. So if that's your thing, you'd like to check out this show I just did earlier today with Matthew Betts of the Fantasy Footballers. We highlighted the Hayden Hurst Foundation, which is all about mental health, which is huge right now. So we do a lot of cool stuff like that. So Matt, I appreciate you having me on, allowing me a platform to shout out what I'm up to. And thank you very much. I'll be happy to come back and hang out with you guys whenever. And good luck in your fantasy drafts, everybody. Don't take a kicker in the second round unless you have to. But yeah, love it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Well, we will catch everyone next week for the fantasy draft. Peace.